So, welcome. My name is Stephen Simons. I am the Director of Admissions here at HWS. I'm joined by Lisa Hosky, who is our Director of Financial Aid, and she's the real star of the show tonight. So I'm just gonna do some little bit of housekeeping, and then I'm gonna turn it over to Lisa. Um, so real quick, just so you know where we are in kind of the admissions timeline. I hopefully all of you on the call have received an admissions offer, I believe. If not, let me know at some point. And your admissions offer is not the end of the story. That will come with a merit scholarship. But today we're going to primarily talk to you about your financial aid award. Some of you have received a financial aid award. My guess is that most of you have not received a financial aid award yet, and we're going to be working on those in the coming weeks. So if you haven't already, complete your 25-26 FAFSA, which we then receive from the federal government, and we have that information. We can create your financial aid packages, which we're doing as quickly as possible. So keep an eye out over the next couple of weeks for your financial aid letter, which will be in your portal. That's where your admissions decision is, and which every student should have access to. And if after this call you have any questions, or want to talk with Lisa about financial aid, or talk to me or any of your admission counselor, we're happy to connect with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. As a reminder, if you have any questions as we go, send me a chat, please. And I'll either answer them in the chat or I'll answer them at the end of this presentation, and we'll talk as a group. So with that being said, Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate it. I'm really glad you're all here. I hope that we can provide some information to make this a little bit more clear for you. Stephen had mentioned sending the chat to him. Part of that is because as I'm talking and responding, I probably won't see it in the chat. I'll try, but it'll just be more efficient that way. So I don't know if any of you haven't done the free application for federal student aid FAFSA, please do that as quickly as possible. It is a form provided by the federal government that helps us determine what you're eligible to receive. And without that, it's really hard for me to move forward. When we look at a student's eligibility for aid, the first thing that we have to do is we have to create what's called a cost of attendance budget. And what that is really, it's just a list of all of the things that we anticipate that a student will have to cover while they're in school. Some of these things will be billed. Some of these things will be billed, like tuition and fees, food and housing. Some of these things are not billed. Some students will have books billed to their account, but things like transportation or personal expenses, those aren't things that we're billing you for, but you're still going to have to, like if you're in California, take a plane ride here, or if you're driving from Binghamton, it's going to cost you money to gas in the car. So that's built in there. Personal expenses, you know, students are going to need shampoo and pizza. They're going to need to get their hair cut, whatever the case may be, that's built in there. And then loan fees, if you take your loans, because the loans do come at a cost. So it does get a little bit confusing. I'm going to try to, if you can go to the next slide, I'm going to show you some real numbers, what this might look like. After we look at the merit, after we get the cost of attendance built, I look at it and I say, okay, what aid does this student qualify for? The first thing that I look at are the scholarships that your child would have received through the admissions process, the merit scholarships for their academic achievements and all of the activities they've done. So that will be added into the package. Grants are usually need-based, and we do have institutional grant funding that we offer. That's going to be looked at next. Those grants can come from HWS. They can come from the federal government if you qualify, or from the state. Like if you live in New York, New York has a pretty robust grant program.
Lisa?
Yeah.
Sorry, I accidentally skipped too far ahead. So I'm gonna.
Okay.
You were right on. We were talking about cost, and I threw you off. So I'm gonna go back a slide. All right.
Well, see, I just rolled with it though, Stephen.
I know you're good
good.
about that. So okay.
This is
Oh,
what I was
sorry. Actually, never
expecting to
mind.
see.
I'm looking at something else. Do you want me to go back? What would you rather start with? Cost of
This one's
attendance?
fine. We
Okay.
can start here at this one. It's all good.
Okay.
So when we were talking about the cost earlier, when we make the budget, tuition and fees, $66,748. Food and housing, $18,210. those are billed. They will be on the student bill. Books and supplies are purchased. Many of our students purchase them through our program in the bookstore, and if that's the case, they'll be on the bill. If they buy them through Amazon, they won't. Personal expenses I talked about already, transportation and loan fees. So when we look at all of the billable and non-billable costs, the ones that we know you're going to incur, our total cost is $89,178. That's the first step in creating a financial aid package, is building this budget. It's relatively the same for every student. If your student has a special circumstance where, I don't know, you do live in California, so your transportation might be more, we can talk about that and make adjustments, but all students start at this basic level. And then you can go to the next one, Stephen, I think that was talking about the different grants and loans and such.
Yep.
So after I know the costs, I look at all of these different things that you could qualify to receive. Scholarships, I mentioned the ones from the college. Grants are need-based. That's where the FAFSA comes in from different sources. We will offer loans, federal loans. We don't offer private and parent loans, but if you want them, we'll help you process them. And then there's work opportunities. We have funding from the federal government, work study. You've probably all heard of that before. And if we actually have a commitment to our own work program as well, if somebody doesn't qualify for federal work study. So we'll put all of that together in an award letter. So here's a sample financial aid package that you may see. I tried to pick someone, sort of in the middle. The scholarship for this student in this example was $34,000 from admissions, from HWS. They qualified for that based on GPA and activities and all that kind of stuff. There was need, this family had need, so I was able to provide a $24,626 HWS grant. The federal Pell Grant comes from the federal government, so they just tell us what we can give people. When you do the FAFSA, they tell us what you're eligible for. New York State TAP pretty much works the same way. It's also a grant, but they tell us what you're eligible for, so we put that in the package. All students will be offered $5,500 in federal loans, assuming they meet all of the basic qualifications. And in this case, we offered a $2,000 work opportunity that a student can earn money throughout the year. So in this case, the total was $74,126 in the aid package. So in this case, if you look at the cost of attendance budget, that actually consist of both the billing and non-billable stuff, your out-of-pocket expenses, including those things like transportation, would be about $15,052. And on the next slide, you'll see what it looks like for those that, if you're looking at just billable, you're like, I know I got to do the transportation. I'm not going to borrow money for that. So tuition fees, housing, and food are at about $84,958. I applied all the financial aid except for work, because I would say with work, you want your student earns a paycheck with work. And that's one of those things that I advise families to just use for the personal expenses, like shampoo and pizza and that kind of thing. I wouldn't put it on the bill. So your out-of-pocket expenses that you're billed for through HWS would be $12,832. And half would be billed in July for the fall semester, and half would be billed in December for the spring semester. So $6,416 a semester. Once you get to that point, there are options for paying the balance beyond financial aid that you could look at. You can do the full payment by the due date, which is usually August 1st, or if you have a 529, that might be when you want to use that. We offer a payment plan at HWS where you can take that amount, in this example, it was $6,000, and you can, if you sign up early, you can divide that up over 5 payments in the semester for a $30 fee. It's not a loan, it's just really spreading out what you owe through the semester. You can take a parent loan, which is a 9.08% interest, at least right now. Private loans are options, the various rates there depending on credit worthiness. If there's a cosigner, that kind of thing, or a combination of the above options. And what I mean by that is you could look, and I mean, even if there was a blended family or a split family, perhaps dad wants to take a payment plan and mom wants to do a plus loan, and we can work that through with you. We're happy to do that. Whatever works for your family, and we can counsel you through what that looks like. Any questions coming through, Stephen, that I would need to?
We'll get there.
Okay. We'll get your financial aid package to you as quickly as possible. We understand the urgency and we understand that you're comparing different offers. We can discuss payment options or special circumstances after you received your financial aid package. So in some cases, that example I just showed you, you may look at that and say, yeah, it looks like I could pay $15,000, but in all reality, you don't know about the nursing home costs that I cover for my elderly parent. If you have those kind of special circumstances, we can talk about whether there's more that we can do for you or there's federal adjustments that we can make, but you need to get your financial aid offer first. Like I need to start from a place where you've gotten your original offer. We are here to help, whether it's me or one of my staff, and appointments are available in person, virtual, and you can even schedule a phone call if that's something that you want to do. And you can always email me or the aid office as well at finaid@hws.edu or Hosky, my last name, at hws.edu. I think that's the last slide. And questions. We leave a lot of time for questions on purpose.
I'll also add that so that merit scholarship that Lisa mentioned in the beginning is guaranteed for all 4 years. So that won't change unless unless the student's not enrolled at HWS full-time. And then the rest of the financial aid package, that's going to remain the same as well, contingent on your family income and family situation staying largely the same. So what you get your first year, you can feel pretty confident that that's what you're going to get for all 4 years or even beyond if you need to. Yeah, HWS, we're not in the practice of giving a lot of financial aid in the first year and then reducing it in later years. We're trying to be pretty consistent so that you can plan for all 4 years. When you get your financial aid, it's going to have multiple sheets, 4 pages roughly, and that includes a breakdown of costs for future years so that you can plan. And it anticipates a small tuition increase each year as well. So all of this is broken down in that financial aid award.
The other thing to think about though too, Stephen, you're right about the merit scholarship. The other piece though is also meeting academic standards. Not just being full-time, you have to stay in good academic
Correct.
standards.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
And if you don't, you're not going to be enrolled full-time at HWS for
Yep.
long. So, all right, Lisa, I have a couple questions. Let's see if I can get them. How do you get grant and work study?
The first thing you have to do is file the FAFSA. And so what happens when you filed the FAFSA, I will take that budget that you saw, the 89,000 budget, and then I'll subtract basically I review the FAFSA information and I see if you're eligible for the grant or the work study or any of the federal grants. And you'll know that right in the award letter.
And then Lisa, can you repeat when payments are due?
Yep, July 1st is when the bill will go out on or about, be due August 1st, and then December 1st and January 1st. So as long as you make arrangements before the due dates though, whether it's a payment plan or a loan, we can work with you. That's with student accounts, but we work pretty closely with them.
And if you have a parent that can't co-sign a loan, how do you get one?
There's not always more to give based on that because sometimes I would advise a student to look for other possibilities for co-signing, or there are loan companies that will let you have a loan without a co-signer. Sometimes though, those interest rates are higher. So you can certainly appeal, and we will look at that if there's things like I was talking about earlier, like some expense that we didn't know about or that we didn't consider. Well, we're happy to look at that, and we have a committee that does that. The first thing I usually have people do is apply for the Parent Plus loan, because even if in a situation where a parent does not qualify due to credit, the student will become eligible for an additional $4,000 in unsubsidized loan that will take off some of that, that will help with some of that balance. And that package that we were looking at, that example, it's not likely to be exactly what you get. It was just sort of an example to show you. So if you're higher need, you might have a higher grant. If you're lower need, you might have a lower grant.
So this is a good question we anticipated today. How does the freeze of federal aid affect HWS?
Well, we are
If we know.
monitoring. Yeah, we are monitoring the situation. I actually spent most of my day today trying to process the federal aid as quickly as possible to make sure we wouldn't get cut off from that funding. I am certain that our colleagues and student accounts will work with us. If we know that all of the paperwork is done on the federal loans, I don't think that we're going to hold students in a position of, I don't think we're going to put students in a bad position because the federal government has made some questionable choices, I guess. I did read right before our meeting here that a judge actually stayed that order to Monday. So as far as I know, Congress has authorized the Pell funding and the loan funding, and I don't think it can be stopped by an executive order, but I'm not a lawyer. So I think basically it comes down to we're going to work with you the best we can to overcome any obstacles that may arise.
Yeah, and the Department of Ed has said, right, that it doesn't affect
Yeah,
Pell or federal loans, though I think it's probably too early to
yeah,
really know.
I agree.
Um, another common question, how do we take into account multiple students in college at the same time?
Mhm. The federal form no longer does, but we will look at that while we're packaging at HWS.
Great. A couple questions from some international students in the chat.
Mhm,
You wouldn't fill out the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. You'd fill out the CSS profile.
mhm,
So that's how you would apply for financial aid if you are not a
mhm,
domestic student.
mhm.
Um, if you don't qualify for federal grants, this is a great question. If you don't qualify for federal grants, or I think probably state grants for that matter, could you still qualify for an HWS grant? So, um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yep,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's a very common thing that we absolutely offer HWS need-based aid, even if you don't qualify for Pell or TAP or state or federal need-based aid. Um, I mean, this is like another really common question, Lisa. Can you just remind folks how they can schedule an appointment with you?
Mhm. There is, would you mind putting the Calendly link in the chat, Stephen? Do you have it?
I can try and get it.
Or I can try to get it to you. If you email me, worst case scenario, if you email me after this presentation, when I respond to you, under my email signature, there's a link where you can click on it and you'll have access to my calendar to make an appointment virtually if you'd like. I will also be at the admitted student days if you're visiting, and we can talk then. And if you can't get in with me, because the slots do fill up pretty quickly, I have 2 assistant directors and an associate director that could meet with you to answer questions as well.
Yeah, I would, given that most of you are admitted students or parents of admitted students, I would highly recommend that if you want, when you come to make a visit or schedule a visit to HWS, that you ask to meet with financial aid if you need to. That can happen at the admitted student events, but if you're coming for just a personal visit, we can try to accommodate that as well so that you have the chance to connect. Um, there a couple other questions have come in, Lisa. One is if they submitted a CSS profile during the application but haven't received a package, is there anything else that they need to do? I believe we are asking if you are a domestic student that you also do the FAFSA. You have to
Yep.
that has to be done. So if you could do the
Mhm.
FAFSA in addition to the CSS profile, that would be great. If you're an international student, you just have to do the CSS profile.
Correct.
Um, and then couple questions about the siblings in college. So the siblings in college is you put that on the FAFSA. Is that correct, Lisa, or does that come
Yep.
over in another way?
Even though the federal government's not considering it, it's still a question on the FAFSA. So we will see that when we're working through your aid package and be able to take that into consideration.
Yeah. And you have to resubmit the FAFSA each year. So every year that you're enrolled, you submit the FAFSA or the CSS profile, and that information is updated every year. So your year one, you might have one in college. Year two, you might have two in college. Year three, you might go back to one. Who knows, right? So that by filling out that FAFSA each year, you're giving us the most up-to-date information, and that is a requirement. Um, Trying to see if there's other questions. There's a question here, Lisa. At HWS, we do have a few graduate programs, including the teacher's master's program or anything like that. How does financial aid work for those graduate programs?
I, most of those graduate programs, there's going to be assistantships that you could qualify for, but primarily loans other than the assistantships. And I think the one program offers a small grant, some, right? The entrepreneurial one. Funding will not be the same as it was for undergrad. It will be different, but the costs are different as well.
Let's see, a couple other questions, just similar to ones we've gotten. Do you know, Lisa, if students have not received a financial aid package, do you know when they might expect to receive one?
We're working through them as quickly as we can. I think we're hoping to get some more out by the end of this week, and then we'll keep doing it weekly after that. So our goal, I mean, if you haven't done the FAFSA, I'm not going to be able to do one for you yet, but if you've done the FAFSA, we're just working through them as quickly as possible, because we know that you need them to make a decision. One of the things, and this, we didn't talk about this, and I probably should have. One of the things, when I talk about the aid package and the costs that I think is really important for families to look at when you're comparing other schools, is if you can maybe get, say, a $50,000 scholarship at a different school, but if their costs are 100,000 and not 89,000, the bottom line could be pretty similar. So don't just look at the scholarship awards and the financial aid packages that you're getting. Look very carefully at the cost of attendance budget, because that is sort of the situation that tends to confuse people a bit. This is not really easy stuff all of the time to process. But we will get them as quickly as possible, and you can certainly email our office or call and check. I would give us at least until the middle of February, end of February, if you can.
Yeah, and as a reminder, if you are not an early decision student, you have until May 1st to apply to or to decide on HWS, and that should be the case of most colleges. So you do have a little bit of time, and hopefully we'll get you that financial aid before you have to make. I mean, we will get it to you well before you need to make that decision, but if you get it in a few weeks, you should have plenty of time. Lisa, there's a question in here about 529s. So if you have a 529, how do you initiate a payment from that 529 to HWS?
You would have to start by contacting your 529 company and see how they do it. Some will do checks, some will do wire transfers. It really is very specific to the company. And I would coordinate with our student accounts office if that's what you're going to do.
A couple questions about work study. What work study is available for students? And then how many hours do students typically work? And what does the kind of finances look like there? So if you kind of can recap work study, that would be great.
So work study is usually, it's about 5-6 hours a week with the amount of the awards that we're giving. So it's not a huge number of hours. I think we want to make sure our students can focus on academics. Jobs include everything from the dining hall to various offices. Admissions has a lot of folks in the office. I have about 4 students in my office. The registrar has folks in the office. Athletics, I think, has quite a few student workers. And there are also really interesting community service opportunities, like America Reads and America Counts for somebody who has work study, that are in the community. So there's a wide variety, although work study is a word of caution. It's not guaranteed. You want to make sure you get into it as soon as you can. We're adding additional jobs every week, I think, but the student ends up going through Handshake, isn't it? I think we have Handshake as the program, and the positions that are available will be listed there.
Great. There is a good question in here about, because I think some people have filled out the CSS profile and the FAFSA. Again, as a reminder, if you're a domestic student, you need to do the FAFSA. If you're an international student, you need to do the CSS profile. But some people have filled out both because of the institutions use both. And this question is, our expected contribution from the CSS and the FAFSA are different. What would be the reasoning for this? And I think, Lisa, what would be our response to that?
The reasoning would be the CSS profile is going to be more robust in terms of it asks for a lot more information than the FAFSA. So you have a lot more there's just a lot more opportunity to explain your financial situation in a more detailed manner. And the policy and the formulas are just different than the federal government. The FAFSA is going to drive what federal funds you're eligible to receive. We will look at both the FAFSA and the profile when we're looking at institutional funds.
Great. Okay, so I think that is most of our questions. I will kind of conclude by just reminding you that kind of if you weren't in here at the beginning, financial aid awards are posted to the student's applicant portal. It's the same place where you received your admissions decision, and you also have your admissions checklist. So when you receive a financial aid award, you will get a notification that there's been an update to your portal, and that's where you will go to access it. You will have, if you've been accepted, you've already received your admission letter with a merit scholarship. That is not the same as a financial aid award. So if you'd like to receive financial aid, you need to fill out the FAFSA if you're a domestic student, or the CSS profile if you are an international student. So I think that is kind of it for us tonight. If you have any questions, you can find our contact information on the admissions website. Feel free to email me, email Lisa, or your admission counselor, and we're here to help.